Cooperative credit unions are a very important part of a country's financial system. I myself am a member of a credit union here in the Bahamas. The credit union, which was started in 1977, was initially only for teachers. However, in 1982, it began offering membership to any employed person in the Bahamas. I joined the credit union in 2017, and since then, I have benefited from their savings plans and credit offerings. In India, their corporate financial institutions are pretty much the same. They are an integral part of India's financial system, particularly for the poorer members of society who make their living from farming. The problem is, however, that because of inadequate regulation and corruption, these institutions are not effectively meeting the needs of those who depend on them most. Many farmers, out of desperation, are turning to unregulated money lenders for loans, and these money lenders charge exorbitant interest rates. Some of the challenges facing this industry are the farmer's income is sporadic and very unpredictable because their success depends very heavily on the weather, and in India, the weather has been behaving very erratically. So, under these circumstances, commercial banks have not been willing to lend the poor farmers money. Farmers are turning to these unscrupulous money lenders, but when they're unable to meet their payment obligations, it makes them feel hopeless, like there's no way out, and the number of suicides is skyrocketing among farmers. This is truly tragic. There's also a lot of interference by the government when it comes to the day to day operations of these cooperatives, when really they should be managed by the members in the best interests of the members. This interference has led to corruption and blatant conflicts of interest. It is also a challenge to keep the more well off members of the cooperative financial institutions. They're pulling their money out and depositing them with the commercial banks instead. And this has resulted in an unfavorable net lender to net borrower ratio. The government, though, has recognized the need for reform in this area and has established a committee to analyze the challenges and weaknesses of this industry and provide recommendations on how to bring about reform. Some things they can look at as they carry out their assessment are they should return the management of these institutions back to the members. The framework already exists for selecting board members, which is to hold elections, but this is not being adhered to. So elections should be held promptly to establish a new leadership team. Government should be returned to its rightful position as regulator. There should be little interference from the government when it comes to the day to day operations. However, a governmental or quasi governmental regulatory body should be in place that has the responsibility for the oversight of these institutions, perhaps the country's central bank. They should set policies that are fair and consistent across the entire industry. The government will also need to provide a subvention to these institutions. In its present state, it is evident that these CFIs need government funding to operate. This is not an ideal situation, but it is necessary until the industry becomes stabilized and can work toward becoming completely self sufficient. CFIs should have flexibility to offer financial products and services that take into account the seasonal nature of the income of its members, instead of being so rigid with their terms like commercial banks. Management of the credit unions must also find a way to attract and keep net lenders so that there can be an acceptable ratio of net lenders to net borrowers. Consideration may also have to be given to extending membership to the public so that it can expand its customer base. The individuals that have been selected for the committee to bring reform to cooperative financial institutions can seek out industry best practices. They can examine other countries that over the years have had successful CFIs, particularly those that cater to farming communities as well. And this will be with the goal of finding out exactly what has made these CFIs successful in those countries and how they may be able to implement some of the same policies.